Hi everyone, welcome back to Movies Reloaded. Today we have a 2016 romance movie called Sanam Teri Kasam. Without any further delay, let's get it. The movie opens with Inder, who wins his first case as a lawyer but is not very excited about it. Inder reaches home, and after receiving best wishes from his servant, he picks up a wine bottle, arrives under an oak tree, and starts staring at the name Saraswati. Inder then flashes back to when he lived in a society building in his apartment. Inder acknowledges someone is coming to his neighbor named Sarawati or Saro. Saro's father is a rigorous person in religious and caste matters. He orders Saro to get ready, but then he receives a call, and the boy's family informs him that they are not coming to see Saro and have selected someone else for their son. Jai Ram reveals the news to his family and orders Saro to get ready for the library as there is no occasion to have a day off. Saro is getting ready when her younger sister, Kaveri, gets mad at her for being the only hindrance to her marriage with her lover Sanjay. Saro leaves, stating that it is not her fault that no boy likes her. On their way out, Jai Ram and Sao encounter Inder while kissing his girlfriend, Ruby, in front of the lift, and Jai Ram gets mad at Inder but does not notice him. Jai Ram complains about Inder to the society's secretary, but he informs him that they cannot do anything because Inder is rich and owns the apartment. Moreover, he has been in prison for 8 years regarding a murder. On their way to the office, Saro's father asks her not to read love poetry as it decreases her IQ level. Saro is working in a library when her friend Abhimanyu arrives and requests a favor. Abhimanyu asks if she can join his party as a teddy man to entertain children, so she can help him get a promotion. Saro agrees, and it seems she has a crush on Abhimanyu. Saro joins the party as a teddy man and entertains the children, after which some of her colleagues make of her by mentioning the Valentine's letter she wrote for Abhimanyu. Saro gets sad and runs from there. On her way to the library, Saro gets strapped inside the lift with Inder, who keeps taking off his clothes, thinking a boy is dressed as a teddy, but Saro takes off the mask while asking to stop taking off his clothes. After they get out of the lift, Inder returns Teddy's head to Saro and asks to find a book for a man who has just returned after 8 years in prison. Saro selects the book, and Inder visits the library to get and return books. One day, Ruby breaks up with Inder and leaves society while abusing him in front of Jai Ram and Saro. Following that, Jai Ram informs his family that Sanjay has seen a guy named Arun for Saro and orders her to see Arun in their absence because they are leaving to attend a function. Sanjay and Arun arrive at night, and Kaveri brings Saro to introduce her to Arun, but they ignore Saro and keep talking to each other. After Sanjay and Arun leave, Saro realizes that Arun has left his phone in their house, and Kaveri asks Saro to return the phone, thinking he may like it. When Saro arrives in the parking area, she hears Arun rejecting her, stating that he cannot marry a girl who looks like her. Inder also listens to their conversation and feels bad for Saro. Saro returns and gets mad at Kaveri for telling Sanjay that 10 boys have rejected her, but Kaveri counters her and requests her to change herself. She informs her that Sanjay has given her an ultimatum and decides to run away with him. But Saro begs her not to do this and promises that she will get married to Sanjay within a week. The next day at the library, Saro spots Ruby's picture in a magazine as India's best makeover artist and tries to make an appointment with her but gets a date for 3 months later. Saro is at home when she spots Inder and gets an idea. When Kaveri falls asleep at night, Saro leaves for Inder's apartment and requests him to patch up with Ruby and make a recommendation for her as soon as possible. Inder is thinking about it, but then Ruby arrives and is drunk. She spots Saro with Inder and misinterprets the situation. Inder tries to persuade her, but she disrespects Saro, and Inder orders Ruby to apologize. But Ruby gets mad at him and leaves after throwing an alcohol bottle at him, which injures Inder. Saro blames herself for everything and accompanies Inder when he leaves to get medicines. Society's security guard spots them and reports to the secretary. Saro and Inder are at a pharmacy when an inspector arrives and gets into an argument with Inder. The inspector decides to arrest Inder, but Saro talks to inspector despite being abided and requests him to give Inder a chance to say sorry and "I love you" to his girlfriend. Inspector listens to these words and allows them to leave while recalling his wife's memories. Inder and Saro return to society, and the guard spies them after they return. Inder falls unconscious after returning to his apartment and sleeps on his back. Saro watches him bleeding and decides to help him stop bleeding while Inder is asleep. Unfortunately, Jairam and his wife arrive, and the society's committee informs him about what happened between Inda and Saro last night. Jairam does not believe them, but when the guard leads them to Inda's apartment, Jairam is taken aback after finding Saro on Inda's bed. Saro is stunned after seeing her father and tries to clarify everything, but he slaps her in return. Inda tells him that he was injured and Saro is trying to help him. Jairam feels ashamed of his daughter and declares Saro dead for him. Jairam leaves after asking everyone to have food at her funeral. After Jairam leaves, Saro apologizes to Inda and goes to her library. After a while, Inda finds Saro sitting and crying alone in the library, thinking she has no place to live. But Inda gives her the keys to the house he has rented for her. Inda guides her to the house, and Saro likes the place. Inda leaves, informing her that he will accompany her to buy vegetables and other necessary things for the home. The following day, Saro and Inda are in the market when Inda buys 2 different types of whey for Saro and himself. Saro insists and drinks Inda's whey, so she gets drunk and starts acting weird and dancing. Inda brings her back home safely. The next day, when asked, Inda lies to her that she is very romantic when drunk and leaves to buy wine. After Inda leaves, Saro spots a beggar stealing a wallet, and she starts fighting with him to return it to its owner. Inda arrives there and returns the wallet to the beggar after looking at the owner's picture. Saro insists on returning the wallet, and after she tries to catch up with Inda, he pushes away, due to which Saro gets injured. Inda returns home and realizes his mistake and that he should not have done this to Saro. Inda comes to her house but discovers she is not there. Inda gets worried for her and eventually finds her in the same place where he got mad at her. Inda apologizes to her, after which she hugs him, and unfortunately, her father spots them. Following that, Inda and Saro are in a cab when Inda informs her that the wallet's owner is his father and he hates him a lot. Inda then changes the topic and asks her how she can fix her relationship with her father. And Saro reveals that marrying an IIT-MIT guy from her caste is the only solution to make it possible. Inda asks her to marry, and she reveals that no one likes to marry her because of how she looks. Inda then takes her to a makeover artist named Mustaqeen and shows that he is Ruby's supplier. Mustaqeen does her makeover in his unique style and changes her completely. After Saro's looks are changed, she thinks her father would have loved her new look, and Inda forces her to go to her house. After Saro arrives, she is stunned to see her father performing a funeral. Inda also observes this, and they leave the building. Saro gets sad thinking his parents hate her, but she promises Inda that she will not waste the look Inda has given her and adds to joining the office as her newer version. Saro arrives at the library, and everyone is shocked to observe the changes in her looks and behavior. Abhimanyu meets her, and when asked, Saro tells him that the changes are to find an IIT guy for her. Saro starts ignoring Abhimanyu, and one day, Inda finds Abhimanyu looking for Saro, but her colleague informs him that she is sick. Inda comes to Saro's house and gets angry at him for not letting him know she was ill. Inda then questions her about why she is ignoring Abhimanyu, and she informs him that she always acts stupid in front of him. Inda keeps asking the reason, but Saro changes the topic and asks him whether he has gotten a job, and Inda tells him that he is holding a list of IIT guys for her, and she will have to meet them all to find one for her. The next day, Saro is in the library when Abhimanyu meets her and proposes marriage, stating she is the one for him. When she went on a date with Inda, he felt awful. Saro gets excited and receives a call from Inda. After that, Saro meets Inda, and he reveals that one of the guys on the list is waiting for her. But Saro denies mentioning Abhimanyu's proposal. When asked for a suggestion, Inda asks her to accept the proposal. Saro and Abhimanyu spend their time together while Inda keeps getting jealous of them, revealing that he is in love with Saro. Saro calls Inda to help her prepare for her marriage when she gets sad after spotting her parents and cavalry busy in their practices. After a few days, Inda meets Saro, and she gives him a card about her marriage and reveals that she will shift to Turkey because Abhimanyu has gotten a job in the Turkish embassy. Inda follows Ramraj while he is on a bus and begs him to join them in Saro's marriage, but he throws the card away angrily. Eventually, Saro's wedding day arrives, but Abhimanyu does not appear there. Saro gets disappointed and reaches home to find out why he betrayed her. Abhimanyu informs her that his parents are unhappy with their marriage, and then Abhimanyu's father tells Saro that they cannot accept a girl whose family considers her dead. Inda takes Saro away, and she gets infuriated at Inda for not beating Abhimanyu. Sorrow then arrives at the hotel where she booked a room for her honeymoon and takes the keys to her room. Sorrow enters the room, starts crying over her bad luck, and eventually ends up sleeping with Inda. The following day, Inda spots Abhimanyu and Sorrow together and leaves her after reading her message for Abhimanyu. Inda is about to leave the city when Sorrow's mother approaches him and requests him to give Kaveri's marriage card to Sorrow. He denies at first, but later, he takes the card and gives it to Abhimanyu's office. On his way out, Abhimanyu stops him and reveals that Sorrow is not with him and has left without leaving any message for Inda or her family. Inda gets worried for her and starts searching for her everywhere. And finally, he finds her in a jungle. Inda warns her never to leave him again like this, but she questions him. He has no right to ask her wherever she goes and requests him to leave her alone by stating that whatever happened between them was her weak moment to forget Abhimanyu. Inda gets broken after listening to pretends to leave, but when Sorrow starts looking for him, Inda returns and hugs her, during which she falls unconscious and starts bleeding from her nose. Inda takes her to the hospital and discovers that Sorrow is a patient with a brain tumor that is nearly impossible to treat. The moment Inda acknowledges that Abhimanyu knows about it, he leaves the hospital and slaps Abhimanyu after finding him alone. Inda gets angry at him thinking he left Sorrow because of her illness, but Abhimanyu states he is ashamed of himself because if he knew that Sorrow was ill, he would have never hurt her. Inda then asks why he did not deliver her message to him, and Abhimanyu reveals that he gave his words to Sorrow. In the following scene, Sorrow's condition gets better, and Inda takes her to give her a surprise. Inda leads her to a location where he has placed many monitors to show her the videos of Kaveri's marriage. After she is done with introducing her family members to him, Inda proposes to her. Sorrow gets sad, stating that God has accepted the prayers of her parents, and she is about to die. Sorrow then starts bleeding from her nose again, and Inda takes her back to the hospital. After that, Inda arrives at Ramraj's house, takes off the flowers from Sorrow's picture, and requests him not to put flowers again. Otherwise, he will keep returning to get slapped. January and other committee members of the society get Inda arrested. Inda requests the inspector to let him make one call, but he does not listen to him and mentions the complaints filed by the society's committee. Meanwhile, Sorrow gets discharged from the hospital and keeps waiting for Inda. When Inda insists on making the call, the inspector orders to put him in the lockup, but Inda manages to escape. The scene shifts to Sorrow, who arrives at the library and picks up the first book Inda got from her. She finds a note in which Inda has asked her for a coffee. After that, she finds the letters in all of the books Inda got and cries, realizing that Inda loves her. On the other hand, the police follow Inda and arrest him, but Inspector questions whether he has done this for someone to say sorry or love you. Inspector takes him to the library and gives him a time of 10 minutes to meet Sorrow. Inda rushes into the library with handcuffs and finds Sorrow crying after reading his messages. Inda asks her to stop crying, and when asked why he allowed her to marry Abhimanyu, Inda reveals that Inda is not the guy she wants or her parents want. Sorrow starts crying and hugs him, but then Inspector arrives to take away Inda. Sorrow hugs him tightly and does not allow him to leave, due to which the inspector opens Inda's handcuffs and wishes them a happy marriage. Sorrow discusses the dresses they will wear on their marriage and sleeps after requesting Inda to bury her under a tree so that she may fall in the form of flowers on the beloved ones who come to see her. Inda gets to Sorrow's house and points a gun at Ramraj for hanging flowers in Sorrow's picture. Inda threatens Ramraj that he can kill and die for Sorrow's happiness. These flowers in her picture make her sad. Sorrow's mother then interferes and asks Ramraj to give up his anger, assuring Inda that they will never hang flowers on Sorrow's picture. Inda reveals, stating he is going to marry Sorrow and is here to invite them. After that, Sorrow and Inda arrive at the court for their marriage, where Inspector is present to give his blessings to them. The registrar starts making promises to them, during which Inda gets sad while making a promise about his father, and they decide to marry just by putting malas to each other. When they are about to marry, Ramraj arrives with his wife. Ramraj asks his daughter whether she is marrying, and Sorrow nods, due to which Inda tries to leave, but Sorrow holds his hand. Eventually, Ramraj agrees to their marriage, stating that Inda has informed him he can kill and die for her, which is the best promise one can make. Ramraj allows them to marry and gives his blessing to his daughter. Unfortunately, Sorrow starts feeling dizzy while signing the marriage documents and falls unconscious while bleeding from her nose. Sorrow's husband and her parents accompany her to the hospital, and when she regains consciousness, Sorrow calls her parents and asks them whether her sister is happy. Suddenly, Doctor arrives and congratulates Sorrow on her marriage. But when asked about the time Sorrow is left with, the doctor gets disappointed and leaves. After the doctor leaves, Ramraj starts crying after realizing his mistake of conducting her funeral. Sorrow forgives her father and asks him not to cry for her. Inspector arrives and calms Inda. Inspector returns Sorrow's bag to him and informs him about a tree which Sorrow has marked in her book. Inda rushes from there, meets his father, asks him for enough land to make a grave under a tree in their garden, and addresses his father as Sir. His father gives him a place, and Inda leaves when his father asks him whom he has killed this time. Inda is with his wife, Sorrow, and mentions that he is not a killer. He reveals that when he was 13 years of age, he had a maid, whom he loved as a mother, but one night his uncle broke into her room, and she accidentally killed him. Inda states that no one would believe her, so he blamed himself, but his father did not save him. Sorrow gets sad, but she convinces Inda that he will forgive his father. Sorrow then asks him to lie on the bed next to her and let her go. Sorrow promises him that when his time comes, she will welcome him. Inda says he cannot let her go, but Sorrow passes out. Inda is sad at her death and hugs her parents to encourage them. After that, Inda encounters his father, who promises to try his best to save his daughter-in-law because he has made a mistake by not protecting him once. But Inda informs him that Sorrow has passed away, after which his father starts crying. Inda hugs his father and forgives him. The movie switches to the beginning. Inda talks to the tree where Sorrow is buried and tells him about his first victory. Inda then tells her he misses her a lot and lies under the tree, and the movie ends here.